Good morning. Today we're taking important new steps to make adoption easier and to move children out of foster care faster. These steps will help to give even more children what every child needs and deserves: loving parents and a strong and stable home. I'm delighted to be joined in the Oval Office today by a remarkable group of children and parents who know firsthand the tremendous possibilities of adoption, and by the First Lady, who has worked so long and hard on this issue and whose efforts have made today possible. I'm especially pleased to be able to take this action now, in this season of hope and light. The holidays we celebrate this month teach us that through faith and love, we can truly repair the world. I can think of no better way to fulfill the promise of this season than to bring a child into a family and a family to a child. There are more than 450,000 children in the nation's foster care system. They are placed there because of abuse, neglect, or a home life that is neither safe nor secure. While most of these children eventually return to their original homes, nearly 100,000 of them simply don't have that option. Those children wait far too long, typically 3 years or more, to find permanent homes and families to love them. Promoting adoption has been at the heart of our administration's efforts to protect our children and strengthen our families. Earlier this year, I was proud to sign a $5,000 tax credit to help families adopt children. We put an end to racial preferences for adoption. No longer can laws keep children of one race from nurturing arms of adopted parents of another. This is a good start, but we must do more. That is why I have just signed a presidential directive with a clear goal. We will double the number of children we move from foster care to permanent homes from 27,000 a year today to 54,000 a year by the year 2002. With this effort, we're saying no child should be trapped in the limbo of foster care. No child should be uncertain about what the word family or parents or home mean, particularly when there are open arms waiting to welcome these children into safe and strong households where they can build good, caring lives. As part of this initiative, I'm directing the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Donna Shalala, who is also with us today, to launch an extensive effort to determine what steps we must take to meet our goal. I want the Secretary to report back to me with her recommendations in 60 days. This report must tell us how we can help states set and meet urgent new adoption targets. It must describe how we can improve coordination among local, state, and federal authorities so that every community has access to the best ways to encourage adoption. And it must outline what sensible financial incentives we can provide states to raise adoption rates. I also want the Secretary to determine what additional changes we can make in federal laws and regulations to ensure that children won't get trapped in foster care. And I want to know if there are any new provisions we can put in place to move children through the system faster and to protect them when they leave. There are other steps we are taking immediately. I'm instructing the Departments of Treasury, Labor, Commerce, and Health and Human Services to launch an all-out effort to heighten public awareness about adoption and to recognize those in the private sector who are committing themselves to this important cause. Let me also say how grateful I am to those in Congress of both parties who are working so hard to make adoption a reality for America's most vulnerable children. I want to thank especially Senators Rockefeller and DeWine and Representatives Kennelly and Camp for their efforts. The fact that we are commemorating the birth of a child who began life in a manger and became the Prince of Peace should remind us that the promise of God has been placed in every child. We must work tirelessly to make sure that every boy and girl in America who is up for adoption has a family waiting out to reach him or her. No child should be in foster care for one day longer than he or she needs to be. This is a season of miracles, and perhaps there is no greater miracle than finding a loving home for a child who needs one. Thanks for listening.
We are so happy to have all of you here in the Oval Office with us today, and I know that the families that are here and the children and teenagers who are here all have a story to tell about how your families were created. And I would like to ask, if I could, I know that several of you actually were united with the children who are here because of television shows that you saw the children on. And perhaps you could tell us what happened and how that came to be. Would you like to start? And maybe you should tell everyone who you are and introduce yourself. Yes.
My name is Gwen Marie. My wife is Carolyn. And these are our 4 children. John, Crystal, Charity, and Dawn.
We had been foster parents, and were looking to adopt, and knew that there were a lot of options. But seeing how children often get lost in the system, our hearts went towards them, knowing that they go in very desirable and young, and end up in the system for a long time, and then are less desirable to people at that point when they are available. So we happened to, by chance, by God's will, have the television on a particular day when there was a talk show about adoption. And for a brief 20 seconds, we saw Crystal on TV. And it just caught in our heart at that time. And when we called the number for the National Adoption Center, we found out that she had 3 siblings. Within a month, the 2 older ones, John and Crystal, had moved in. We started visits with Charity and Dawn, and 2 months later, they moved in as well. Before, we were separated in 2 foster homes for 5 years. So when the 2 younger ones moved in the week before Thanksgiving, it was the first time in 5 years that they spent that together, and we just had a very thankful time to just thank God for an incredible family.
I'm glad you're here today. Did you also have a television?
Actually, no. I adopted Michael when he was only 8 weeks old through the state of Connecticut. I was 44 at the time, a divorced woman, wanted a child, and I was totally blessed. This is the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced in my life, is having the gift of this beautiful child here. And I work for a company, Phoenix Insurance Company, which is an incredibly supportive company for adoption. We have a subsidy for people up to $2,000 for adoption of children. And the company has been supportive in a lot of ways. Me as a single parent, on your work, you're working on your account honor roll. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, I'm delighted that you're doing this, because as I go around and I tell people I adopted a child and I was 44 and he came from the state, I get all of these surprised looks, how could you get him as a single parent? Are there children in the system? I think we have a huge job ahead of us in terms of educating people about getting children out of the public system. Kids are there and they need us.
I absolutely agree.
And they need companies like mine to support them.
Great. And what about your family story?
Hi, my name is Larry and Lisi, and we were a foster family to start off with. I always loved children. I wanted to have a lot of children. I saw this commercial on TV to open up your heart and your home to a special needs child. So I responded to that commercial, and first I became a foster parent through Lackawanna County Children in Pennsylvania. So at St. Joseph's School without adopting. And I went through with adoption. They set us up at a match party, and I met Jason there. He was 13 at the time.
Jason?
Oh, you're not just 15.
He'll be 16 next month. And him and I, we made eye contact. We sat down, we had lunch, and we looked at each other in the eye, and we both knew that minute that was his father, and he was my son. There was no doubt whatsoever. But they had another family that had wanted Jason. They were a 2-parent, I'm a single parent. And that was a 2-parent home. But that lady there kept changing her mind back and forth, so I said to his caseworker, this isn't for sure with her. I think I should get first choice over Jason, because I'm ready to make a commitment now. And she agreed, and Jason, he was sure and I was sure, and we did adoption. And then some time later, I was ready for the next one, and the caseworker was calling around to try and find a home for Michael. Michael got cerebral palsy, and he's got mild mental retardation. He has a lot of problems with him. He came under it was hard to find him a home. Anyway, finally I accepted. I said I would take him, but there was some race issues at the time that they wouldn't let me have him right away. It took, I think, about 5 or 6 months. They contacted me back, and they couldn't get another family to take them, so they accepted us. But I was kind of upset at the time because we were ready to give them a loving home, and it didn't happen because of one caseworker. It didn't happen as fast as it should have. So we finally got it. And we finalized with him on November 15th of this year.
Well, that's one in time for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So you have, how many kids do you have now?
I have 3 biological children, 2 adopted, and I've had 23 foster children.
That's great. And what about your story?
My name is Frances Bryant. It's my husband, Michael Bryant. And we also saw Trey on a television program. He was watching the news one night, and normally I don't actually watch this particular channel. And for some reason, I was just glued to this news. And I had never seen a commercial with children on it asking to go home. And the minute I saw Trey, and he was on there, and it just touched my heart so much. And I wrote down a number, and it was 1-800-KIDS hotline Wendy's. And I got up right after it went off, and I told my husband, I said, you wouldn't believe what I just seen on TV. You know, I had never seen a child ask to go home. There was no way that I could refuse this. I mean, it just touched my heart so. And we called the very next day and found out the information and went through the process, and it only took about 2 months, and we got trained out home. And what the amazing thing is that I didn't realize how many children are out there waiting to be adopted. And I encourage anyone who can open their heart and their home to a child. It's a wonderful, rewarding experience. And I'm also going to do it again.
Well, we have some children here who are waiting for homes, and maybe you could introduce yourselves. I mean, which ones, who wants to go first? Anybody want to say anything?
I've been waiting for a family for quite a long time. And hopefully, in a short amount of time that I will probably get what I'm looking for in a family. And my brother has already been adopted, and hopefully I get adopted by his family at one point in time. And if not, I'll still be able to be in contact with him. And,
How old are you?
13,
How old is your brother?
17.
How long have you been in foster care?
About 2-3 years.
2 or 3 years?
Where's your home?
I'm not sure, but
Where do you live?
where do I live now? Alexandria.
Okay.
Anybody else want to talk?
What's your name? I'm glad you're here this morning. Well, you know, one of the goals that we have with trying to do this, and as you say, talk more about education of people about adoption, and something the Secretary and the President and all of us are committed to, is so that more people know what your experience has been like. And anytime you raise a child, it is not all easy. I mean, we know that. I mean, there are going to be ups and downs no matter what. But I think that, you know, your stories about the emotional feeling that you had when you met your children is something that if we can get more people to see, we'll have more response. Do you agree with that, too?
Absolutely. So Michael, the first time he was 4 weeks old. And as you say, I knew that this is my little boy. You know, I was all pumped up like, oh, I'm going to adopt a little girl, because I know about girls. I was working with the commission on women for a long time. And I saw this little whiteness all over. But it has been an enormous blessing for me and for my family. You know, he's just an incredible, incredible girl. And I just wish that more and more people could have that experience. You know, there's so much mythology about adoption. And if we could just get the word out and just get people to go and see and talk to these beautiful children, you know, we could find them all homes. You know, and we have stable, loving parents who care about them, who are raised in strong citizens. And it's the greatest thing I've ever done. I hope.
That's what we're going to try to do, and you all are experts because you've been through the system. What are some of the changes that we need to make in the system that each of you has dealt with so that we can perhaps encourage more people to be involved? Any thoughts about that?
Just the length of time and other things. In my situation, I'm thankful that it took longer only because I would not have had them otherwise. but it breaks my heart to know that these are my children, and to know that they were separated from each other for that long. It's heart-wrenching, and I may not have been their parent at that time, but having them now in my heart, I was their parent all that time, and to think that they had to live without each other as a parent is just very sad. And thinking
How long did it take?
they were together about 5 years. Our experience happened more quickly than usual. It was very speedy, thankfully. But to know that they were apart was unnecessary.
I'd like to see us do a lot more with companies. You know, I'm sure that, you know, I can speak on behalf of my company because it's very family supportive and family centered. It's Phoenix Insurance, and anybody who wants to talk to me about it, please call, because I want to help other companies do the same thing. We could just get companies to tell their employees about these kinds of opportunities, to do more through their newsletters, and you know, say we're offering a benefit and please come take advantage of it. Great.
And the new legislation that the president signed to give people the $5,000 tax credit, that's something we need to make sure people know about too, because you obviously don't do these things because of that, but there are expenses associated with taking a child into your home, especially a child with medical problems. Have you found that?
Well, I'm lucky as far as the medical problems, because Michael's medication alone comes to about $800 a month, and I could never afford that on my own. But I have Pennsylvania Medical Access Card, which covers his medical, and he needs many operations that he's been in, even before I got him, and he just got an operation last month. They cover everything totally. All his needs are met and paid for by the state. And I think it would be like impossible for me to adopt him if that, you know, the state didn't pay for his needs, his medical care. It's a tremendous amount. And it's a tremendous expense. Also, what I want to say with the other thing about adopting, I think it's, from what I find with some of the children, that they give the parents too many years. They keep the children in foster care too many years. Jason was first in foster care from an infant, and he didn't get put up for adoption until he was 13 years old. It went so many years back and forth that he went back to the birth family and then take him away again and back and forth. And Michael was also 5 years. His mother abandoned him at birth. He was put in foster care right from the hospital when he was born. And he's been in 2 foster homes in 5 years before I adopted him. I think it should be a lesser amount of time. The child, don't give the parents that long to try to get their children back. I think a year should be good enough. If the parents don't clean up their act within a year, then that child should be put in a loving home where he can get all the love that his natural parents can give him.
How do you feel about that, Jason? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree on the same. It shouldn't take that much time because, I mean, for the child, of course, he's going to think that it should because he's going to want to go back with his biological parents. But, I mean, if to sit here and think about it, I would have liked it that way, then to keep going back, keep tucking away, keep going back, for it to keep happening like that.
Each time a new foster home. There's other foster homes, they filled up.
Yeah.
So he was like, I think, about 12, 13 foster homes, and there was a new one each time. He couldn't even go back to the same foster home where he knew the people. So he had to go through that struggle of trying to fit in with a new family all over again, and over and over and over again.
How many foster homes did you live with?
About 3.
It's hard when you change.
A bit. After a while, we get sort of used to it, but it's still hard.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the example.
Thank you.
Thank
What's your
you.
name? What?